Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me today on the Planar 2022 overview. Today's task goal is to go over the 2022 software, its changes, its updates, its improvements, and show you how you guys can enjoy the 2022 software to its fullest and best capabilities. So, without further ado, let's step into the 2022 software. First thing we'll look at today is the theme of the software. After talking with InspectVision a little bit, we kind of came to the conclusion that the theme for the 2022 era is universal. This is all about streamlining everything together, bringing everything from 2D to 2.5D to 3D to your mechanical components, universally bringing them all up better for the end user. And some of those achievements include streamlined inspection items. You'll see a lot of improvements there. So one of my favorite things is will definitely be covered there. We have a lot of under the hood improvements. Some of these you may notice, such as faster importing of CAD models, faster measurement methods, and then we have some hardware detection improvements. A lot of you that might have struggled with some USB settings or USB ports that we have to have in specific slots, those days are of the past. Now the system will automatically detect where these USB ports are at and make your life easier. And last but not least, we have the 3D scan automation improvements. For those of you that do have the combination system, you've got the 2D, the 2.5D, and the 3D. You can now take your 3D scan data, have multiple features, multiple scan sets, bring them into one file, and using a macro that InspectVision was able to create with the use of Geomagic Control Access software, hopefully make your life easy in automatically combining all that information. And last but not least, we have the newly added capabilities. This has been something for those of you that were at the FabTech show or our Oktoberfest show. You might have seen this guy already, but it is what we call AOI. That is Area of Interest. This allows you to measure planar features such as countersinks, blind holes, pins, inserts, gaskets, PEM nuts, some labels, and kind of anything else we can see while using the light from the top of the part, filtering it out with creating a shadow. Thus, we can measure where that feature is at. So that will be discussed at the end of this video, as that is one of the accessories that people don't really have yet, but just want to show it off and its capabilities. All right, the first step we're going to talk to here is, well, the first way you'd also start off by opening up a planar file. Let's look at the CAD import window and the difference on the filter layers toolbar. As you see on the right-hand side, you'll see 3 extra icons that you're not used to seeing. The first one is the undo button. It has been resurrected. Yes, we lost in the 2020 software. I was very sad to see it go, but after talking with InspectVision, those guys, they were able to finesse some of the bugs that that button was causing, and now we're able to bring it back, and let's hope it stays here forever. There are also 2 new buttons that you guys have not seen before, and let's cover some what those do. The first one is Mark Profile Features. That allows individual CAD features to be defined as a profile feature, which would be typically measured using the standard 2D planar backlight. Now, unless otherwise told, everything in the planar software, when you import a CAD file, will be assumed as a mark profile feature. It is a profile of the part. That's what our system usually measures. However, now the next button, Mark Area Features, that allows us to call individual CAD features to be defined as an AOI feature. That's, again, that area of interest. And that allows us to kind of define etching, PEM nuts, again, countersinks, embossments, anything like that. Basically, we can tell the system we're going to leave that on the CAD file, but we're not going to see it in the 2D measurement, so don't try to fit to it. Again, I know a lot of you have been asking for this feature to allow importing etchings so your operators can verify it's there or not. This, although not ideally meant for this method, is a way of actually doing that. So, without further ado, let's jump into the software and see what it looks like when we open up the file and play with some of those settings. First things first. Let's open up our CAD file. And you can see in the far left-hand side here, we've got our new buttons. Again, our undo button, mark profiles, and mark area features. If I turn on my etching layer here, you'll see additional text has been created under the CAD file. From here, I can say mark area features on the information I don't want to fit to. These are not through holes. They are not laser cut. They are not punched out. They are etching information that with the backlight of the table, we will never see. So I don't want to fit to it. And when you have features like that, you want to call them area features. So again, highlight the information I want, right-click it, and when I hit OK, it's going to import the CAD file, and it'll call that information it kind of turns the color yellow. That way you have the understanding that, hey, we are not going to fit this information to the part. Let me go ahead and create my nominals of this part. And I will measure it. And just like that, jeepers, why are you so far off? All right. There we go. All right, and let's step into the software to see how this software, or how the new software looks with the filtered layers toolbar. So first things first, let's open up our CAD file. And you'll see in the new toolbar we have here, we have the undo button, mark profiles, and mark area features. So I'm now going to turn on my etching layer, and we can see that we have etching info, part number 1234. But again, that is etched. It is not cut, it is not laser punched, laser cut, punch, anything like that. So I need to call this information as mark area features. Highlight that information, right click. I've now told the system that that information is not to be used in the 2D world. And I can prove that information out by hitting OK. And when we import it, we can see that the text actually becomes yellow, thus telling us, hey, this is not going to be measured in the 2D world. Next, I can hit measure here. And when I do that, ta-da, you can see that we do actually pass this part, even given the fact that it does not see that information. This is reported as missing. However, because we've told it as mark area features, we know it's not there. And when I go to my part, as you can see, there is no etching. So this would be something that you could have an operator look for that specifically to verify if it is there or is not there. Again, in this case, it is not there on purpose, but something you guys can look for. So again, ways of using the mark area features on your software, on countersinks, PEM nuts, and or etching such as this, and to get your part to still to pass and not give you false failures. Next, inspection reports and GD&T. So there's been some changes in the GD&T. 2020 was our massive update that changed everything you know about GD&T in the Planar software. And they've not done a lot of changes this year, but they've just kind of added more improvements for you. Again, defining datums faster, easier, and some additional supported alignment types that previously were not available in the 2020 software. So again, let's go into that software and play around with our GD&T and alignments. So let's start off by opening up our GD&T part. And you'll see she looks just like this. When I go to my inspection report and I go to alignments tab, you'll see that we have a bunch of these options here. A, for those that don't know, we can highlight the bottom surface as datum A. A lot of times you have an ABC callout, and to define datum A, you can just literally say create add, right click on Nowheresville, and it creates a bottom surface datum A for you. Again, we're not technically using any information there, but we can technically look very similar to you guys' customers' reports. Next, we'll see datum B is here, datum C is on the bottom, and then we have center hole for datum D. Next, we also have our ABC alignment. B is our left wall, C is our bottom, and then in this case, I could say my left wall is B, and then my tertiary is going to be my center hole through datum D. And then if you wanted to, you can also create these best fit patterns. In this case, let's say I want to use the hex pattern as my alignment. I can highlight individual features to create it that way. So how did we get there? Let's go through that real quick. So again, going back to creating datum A, click on add, and you'll see in the bottom left-hand corner it says select nothing to designate the bottom surface. So if I just right click on nothing, it automatically creates a bottom surface for me. Next, I'm going to show you how to create the new datums without having to do add, and add. Because in the new software, as I click on individual features, it'll just create them as that datum. So this will be datum B, this will be datum C, and this through hole will be datum D. And when I right click, you'll see it automatically highlights them in the order that I picked them, B, C, and D. Again, faster way of aligning, calling out information you want for your specific datums. And then just like you would in your normal datum reference frame, go in and create one. I call this an ABC. And I'm also going to add a datum reference frame called an ADB. Makes a bit more sense to go from the center of the part and then align to the left wall over there versus the left wall then skew to the center. You know, information such as that. And last but not least, if you have a pattern that you have to call out as a data reference frame, technically Planar does not support a pattern as a datum when regards to a DRF or as a data reference frame. However, we can still do a best fit to a pattern. We're just not fitting to the standards of the primary, secondary, tertiary fitting method. We're just going to do what's called a best fit. So again, I could use a best fit, and now I can highlight multiple features to use as my best fit geometry. And now I've got those 4 hexes as a whole, an alignment. Go in here and name this whatever you want. We'll call this datum E or alignment E, and happy days. So again, additional ways of doing GD&T. Next, inspection reports. These next 2 slides I am very excited about because it's going to make all you guys' lives so much easier. First thing, manual add. For those of you that do some manual added items to your inspection reports, you are now able to right-click repeat on every single entity inside the manual add window. I'm talking about all the GD&T icons, all your collection features such as collection line, collection circle, collection arc, collection point, every single one of those, right-click repeatable. And of course, all your linear dimensions are right-click repeatable as they always were. Another thing that they changed for the better is collection points. In the previous versions of software, you had to highlight entire features in order for you to create a collection point out of it. And if you missed one open CAD entity, it blew up with an error message and kind of caused some fuss. Now, as long as it knows that that is an entirely enclosed feature, all you have to do is click on the edge of the feature and it automatically creates a collection point at the center of you without having to do anything. It is going to be so much faster. And then at the end, there is a bonus tip I want to throw in there that I've worked with a lot of you advanced users on that maybe some of you did not know existed, in a sense of rotating your linear dimensions to fit to a specific feature to get dimensions as needed. So again, let's start off in the software. So let's go open up a CAD file here. Again, a new one just for fun. And there's our part. And when I go to my inspection report, new report, manual add. So now I can go across and I can create a collection line from here to here. Let's average that out. There it is there. Right click, do the same thing. I want a midpoint of the slot, collection line. I want a collection line of the entire center of the part. Right click, repeat, do the same thing on this side over here. Boom, boom, bang, and bang. I'm creating collection points like crazy. It's awesome. Next, let's talk about collection points. For some of you that have a little bit more user experience in regards to using collection points to create position and profile callouts, you've already done this. But for those of you that don't, I can create a collection point to the entire outer surface of the part. And now in the newest version of software, I can auto-gen a position or a profile callout to that entire outer surface. So if I just click on the outer wall, you see my collection point is there. I'm going to right-click repeat to put a center point in the slot. Right-click repeat and add the center point of all these rectangles as well. Right-click repeat, right-click repeat, right-click repeat. Boom, bang, pow. There we go. So very quick and effective. And let's last but not least do a collection circle here. And I can shift select, grab everything, shift select the center hole, and there's my collection circle. So we've created a lot of different information that wasn't originally on this report that we can now use to interface with. Now, from here, I can go ahead and I can do some position. So click on my position icon, draw out my line, and I'll do an MMC. I'm going to just create some fake tolerances just for ease of use. And all right, position to 0.5 millimeter to MMC. And I can come over here, right click, repeat, position to MMC, or in this case, I'll just do regardless of feature size, and right click, repeat. And again, there's my right click, repeat for GD&T. Same thing for profile. I can come in here and I can say profile. I want profile of just this arc right here. Click on that, have it shoot from that line, 0.5 millimeter profile, 0.5 millimeter profile. Last but not least, I want profile of the center hole. Again, do the same thing, profile. Right click, repeat is just so much faster nowadays. Now, again, when I was talking about the entire outer layer, what you guys can do is I can do profile to this collection point. And that collection point actually ties itself to the entire outer edge of the part. So I can now do a profile of this part to the entire outer edge using a collection point. And I can do the same thing here. Right click on this, just like that. And I can do the same thing on there, just like that. And again, profile this collection point as well. So it just flies through and creates everything. Again, with such ease and quickness, I love the new GD&T, or the new right click repeat. Now, let's talk about that angle measurement we were chatting about. Let's say you guys have a dimension where you need to know the distance from this line here to this circle here, but it needs to be aligned to this feature. As you can tell, when I drag my linear box up and down, it's not aligned to this slot at all. So to do that, we can go create a vertical dimension from the midpoint of this line to this center of this hole. Pick that center there. Next, I'm going to do a command in the bottom left-hand corner, and I'm going to type the word rotate. From there, I'm going to rotate what? This dimension from the center axis here. I'm going to rotate it all the way down here. Now, I just need to grab this line, drag it to the center of this part, and you can see now I am perfectly aligned to this feature right here. That is exactly the dimension I'm looking for. Now, another thing you guys can do to make it easier is align dimension. And I can say, hey, I want the align dimension straight from here to this guy here. For those that don't know, that little half right angle bracket right there, that is the apparent intersection of, or perpendicular to, sorry, of this line here. So this, as you can see, as I drag my line up and down it, is exactly what I want. So you don't always need to use the rotate command. I can just use this intersection perpendicular to, and it highlights it right there. The problem is you don't always have access to do perpendicular to, because it might land out, again, in the middle of this part. And if you do something like that, it's not going to work. It's in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't like that. So that's where you need to use the linear command, or vertical dimension, come to the center, go to the center here, type the word rotate, highlight this feature, go from the center of this line down to the bottom, and I can click and drag this line here down to where it needs to be. And again, there's my snapped dimension, whether it's aligned to it or not. So again, the rotate command just makes your guys' life so much easier. Next, back to our inspection reports again, our new auto-gen report window. Hopefully a lot of you out there are using this auto-gen report window because it can make your life so much easier. A lot of you, I know a lot of you have to use your customer-specific prints, and that all makes sense. However, it is so nice to be able just to say, you know what, I got 44 holes in this part. I automatically want to just get my diameters. We can do that. But nowadays, with our new auto-gen report window, we have a lot more options. Starting from the top down, we have the additional GD&T inspection report windows that we can now add to the auto-gen report window. Look at all the, the circularity, the profile, the angularity, perpendicularity, parallelism, position, and concentricity. All that information can now automatically be generated as long as a specific datum exists if it's on your report. Now we do support profile and position callouts to collection points. So you'll see in this far right-hand side here, my collection points also have an option for profile and for position. That was not an option in the 2020 software. You had to manually go create those dimensions. Now I can do that with ease. We also now support positions to an arc callout. We still do not support positions to an arc with a material condition, but we can still at least do a minimum, a position of that arc back to a datum frame if needed. And some new fun ones as well. In the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see that we automatically have the slot length and slot width options, which again will make some people's lives a lot easier. And last but not least, a clear button has been added because as you can see, there's a lot of boxes there, the boxes that you could tick. And sometimes if you kind of forget what's been selected or not, it could throw off your report. So I've gotten into the habit of clicking that clear button anytime I do anything before I go on and add those dimensions. So as with before, let's go look at it. So back to this part here. Actually, let's go to a different part without the etching information. There we go. Let's go load this part in. So let's go create my alignments. Datum A, B. We'll just call this C and D just to make life easy for us here. And we'll do some datum frames in A, B, C. And let's also add an A, D, B, just like that. Now, as I go to my new report and I go to my AutoGen, you'll see there's a lot more features here. First things first, slot length and width. I've got two slots on this part, and I want to know the length and width automatically. Click on those two options, hit OK. Bang, there's our 4 callouts for our lengths and widths. I have toyed with a few parts that have upwards of 800 slots on it, and we have yet to make this thing crash or die when it comes to having automatically generated slot and length and width. So please test me on that if possible. Next, again, I'm going to open this up, clear off my options I already had. I want position to all of my holes. Actually, we already had that one available, but position to all my holes, MMC to AVC, hit OK, and there you go. Kind of looks just like that. Now, what if I go into my manual add here, and I'm going to create a collection circle out of this entire part here. Forget the center line, and there's my collection circle. Now I can use AutoGen and say, hey, I've got datum D, and there's also a bolt hole circle that has the same XY location as datum D. I want concentricity off all my circles. Well, there's only one circle available, but it is my collection circle, and we can automatically generate concentricity back to D. And again, let's also go in and add some collection points back to our right-click repeat with collection points. That one gets there, that guy gets there, that one there, and that one there. And last but not least, let's do one for the entire outer edge. That's this guy here. I'm going to move this so I know exactly where it's at. You can move the features until you back out of this window. Once you back out of this, then it's locked in place. But I want to move it because I want to call out all my features, my collection points. I want profile to all that information. So what that will be is that a profile to the entire outer edge, profile the hexagons, and I'll profile the slots. Just like that. Calls out the profile to it. Now, if you want to line up this feature to make it look a little bit better to your part, you can always come over here, snap that information there, and you can always move this line and move this line to kind of make it look a little bit better. So customization, if needed, that is not going to do too much to the software there. And there we go. So let's go and make a new report here. All right. Now, what else can we do here? Let's look at straightness. You want straightness of all your lines? With a click of a button, you can generate 30, 48 callouts of straightness if you want on all your data and information here. As well as, let's create this collection circle again. We can call out, profile, angularity, perpendicularity, parallelism, concentricity, any of this information you guys see fit. And last but not least, if I go to my AutoGen report here, I can do profile of a slot. No. And last but not least, you can see that I can do profile of a slot, just like that. Very, very easy information. So again, the new AutoGen report window is absolutely fantastic. Still sticking with the inspection reports theme right now. Some other changes in the 2022 software. The auto inspect will now print all reports instead of the report only at the specified index. For those that kind of understand what I'm going through here, there was I don't know if I want to call it a bug, but each report had its own specific index. Basically, whatever report you last modified or last edited, that became the primary index. And if you had the option that said automatically print reports, it would print just the last previously primary index. However, now in the 2022 software, if you've got 1 report or 15 reports, we will print all of them. So again, should make it easy for you to go through your, critical to quality reports, your FAIs, your operator use only, and your PPAPs. So another thing we can also do is we can automatically generate dimensions into a separate report. For those of you, go to the software real quick. For those of you that go to your automatic inspection settings, under auto inspect, and there's an AutoGen report, for those of you that use this box, again, we can utilize all the new settings that is under our AutoGen report options. But if you use that, it'll now create it into a separate report. Now, I'm sure some of you even realize this, that if you, let's say I imported 5 dimensions based off the CAD, and then I added my own from this report here, in the original software, it would combine it all into one report. However, now you could have your items you brought in from CAD on its own individual report, and then have a secondary report auto-generated from this information here that you guys use as needed for the operators to see that information as well. And last but not least, the measurement units in the report header. This has been a long time coming, relatively quick fix, but we finally got it in the software. So now if you go to your header in the software here, you can actually see if this part is in, which units. For instance, this one here, we can see is now in millimeters, just right there. So that'll now be in every single report, whether it's your printed diagram or your inspection report. All the information is now going to be included there. Again, just a nice quality of life add. Next, now we're onto the phase of where we're measuring parts and kind of the changes there. First thing you'll notice is under the automatic snap option, you'll see all the way at the bottom, there's a checkbox for allow mirror. You now have a toggle button for allowing the part to be mirrored or not mirrored when placed on the part. Most default planar inspection systems were set up by default to always allow mirror. However, some customers have the need to know if it's a left-hand part or a right-hand part. When we allowed mirror of that, it was always fitting it no matter what, and we could never sort it by that way. Now you can go in, uncheck the allow mirror, and now you're checking the left-hand versus right-handed parts. Next, table dots drift reporting. For those that have been paying attention to their table dot markers, this allows you to know if you actually have a problem while you're running through it. In the bottom of your software, there's always been some report of, hey, it's off by X amount of pixels or X amount of XYZ pixels. However, we never really knew what that meant. Now, in the software, from InspectVision, they've said how much allowable error is allowed, and then you now have a percentage to follow to see, are you at 40%, 50%, 90%? At what point do you need to realign your camera and be worried about the table dot markers? Okay? Last but not least, we have the repositioning marker thickness calculation. So, how our machines kind of worked with the repositioning markers is InspectVision set up what the primary value should be for the thickness of those markers. And when we installed the machine, we verified that thickness worked on our trim plate, and that's how we kind of proved out the marker thickness was working properly. The problem with that is it never allowed you guys to customize your markers. If you wanted to add on thicker magnets, put on thicker stickers, or anything like that, that affected our markers. So now they've gone through and they upgraded the software so that way you can utilize what a proper number is with a caliper. So use a caliper on your markers and enter that information where you guys normally do. Again, that's going to be computer vision, reposition, and here's your marker thickness there. Use calipers on your part and then enter what that value is going to be. Just so you guys are aware, if you guys are using sticky markers or magnetic markers, those values will be different. The sticky adhesive markers are thicker than the magnetic ones. So do not use the same value for both, as they will not work. Okay? And let's cover some miscellaneous things that have been updated in the software as well. We've got reverse engineer. Everything that we were able to do in the manual add mode has basically been brought over into the reverse engineer mode. Everything has been right-click repeatable, whether you're creating lines, doing a fillet radius, erasing information, constructing a pattern, constructing a polar array, whatever you're doing in the reverse engineer tab, all that information is right-click repeatable. Again, that universal streamlined idea of just making life easier for the operators or the guys that are creating the parts. Another change, measure O-rings. Measure O-rings has moved. Originally, it was in computer vision, measure O-ring. However, now you'll find it in the File, New O-ring window, where it will create a new CAD file for you based off your ID, OD, and cross-section dimensions, and instantly create a new program for you as well. So again, making life a little bit easier for you. And last but not least, parts projection, or as the developers like to call this, Larry. I've been calling it MSA because there's an option called MSA for what this is, but apparently we like to call it Larry. So what Larry is a setting I think that some of you have really been wanting for a while and just didn't know it yet. So when I go to my webcam real quick here, if I put my part on the table, well, InspectVision excels by letting me put this part anywhere. I can put it over here, I can flip it over, put it over there. But sometimes when it comes to repeatability and accuracy, it's nice to tell the operators, put it here with this orientation, right? So now, if I were to open up a part file, just like this, first thing you'll notice is the second I hit new, the screen turns to the grid. It forgets everything that was open in the past. If I had 50 parts on the table before this, it usually kept the red, greens, that kind of got in the way. Now, the second I hit new, it throws out the projection grid so we know exactly where the center of the table is. Now, let me open up my part file. Second I open up my CAD file, you'll see it actually highlights on the table where the part should be sitting, which is dead center, and in what orientation should that part be. So now I can tell operators, hey, always put it inside this view, and I'll get the most accurate, most repeatable results, and it kind of gets that operator error out of it, right? So now if I hit measure my part here, measure my part, that information looks good. Pass, all right. Now if I go to my next part, I hit open, and I'll go to my fast start, and I hit OK. Now you can see my fast start part is a little guy, but now it's going to hide the table for where the fast start part should be, just like that. So again, this is called Larry, or MSA as I like to call it, and if you want to turn this on, let's say you like this feature, please reach out to PQI, my email address, support@inspectvision.com, anything like that. Reach out to those people and ask, how do we get Larry or MSA? We think they could really help our process, and we'd be happy to help you guys out. All right, now time for some under the hood improvements. Under the hood improvements could be something that is really helpful, actually, is improved load times for large parts. When the software sees a CAD file now with thousands of lines, there was this option where it was trying to find the intersection point of all these lines for calculation reasons. Now it kind of deems that, hey, that is not necessary. This part is simply way too large. I don't need to spend that time. And that improved time has actually allowed us to bring a CAD file in from 50 seconds on the old software with about 800 different slots in it and collection points in the center of those slots to down to 10 seconds. We also have the availability of making the CAD file, if I turn off the collection point identification, it imported the same CAD file from 5 seconds to 2 seconds. And just like that, that was a lot faster method of importing those CAD files. That is some of the improvements of the under the hood improvements we're able to see here. And last but not least is the improved heal CAD speed. Again, anytime you have a CAD file that has multiple, hundreds or if not thousands of features, you want to turn off as many of those settings as possible, because the more settings you have turned on here, the more settings you are going to have to, the more time it's going to take to import and modify the CAD data to look for all this information. So again, if your part is taking forever to import and it's really large, turn off all this information if possible, and then hit apply and import it and see if that speeds it up for you. All right, last option under the improvements under the hood. Improved hardware detection. Again, back to when I first started the webinar, those backlight controller issues. If you ever had your IT guy go into the back of the machine, mess with the USB ports, and if they didn't put it specifically in the exact same ports, well, it kind of affected the way our Planar software ran. We had to have exact COM port communication to make it function. Well, again, in this new software, we have a new controller that is going to automatically look for that connection type out of all available COM ports, and that way, as long as you have a connection via USB, we will find it and make it work. Again, you're just making this whole system a universal, more streamlined method for operators and end users. Now, another option is the per projector scan options. If you have the combination system with a SurfScan and an OptiScan, I'm pretty sure we've all been through there where I had the SurfScan on, I was going to measure a 2.5D part, and the second I hit go, the table starts rotating. Darn it, that's not what I meant. I need to go turn that off and whatnot. Now the system's smart enough to say, hey, I know exactly which camera you're using, which projector. I'm going to default turn these items on and off for you. So it kind of, again, helps us avoid issues just like that. And then last but not least, again, more of an under the hood improvement, but just nice to know that they're thinking of you. For those of you that had very long, awkward rectangular parts, when you were to measure multiple parts on the table and were to see it in the deviation window, it would take up a lot of space and your parts would look tiny. So they would kind of improve the way the grid laid out for the super long parts, so it looks more proper on your reports. Again, a little fix, but something that's appreciated. All right, last two options for this one. First thing I want to cover is the AOI, Area of Interest. We are very excited about this. I think this could open up a whole new wave of options for you guys, for your Planar users, whether you currently have one, whether you're looking at getting one. We've always been able to measure the 2D of the part, but we've always struggled with getting, again, the PEM nuts, the pins, the countersinks, any 3D features that we just couldn't see before. Now, as you can see in that bottom right picture there, it's got the 4 pillars on a P150 that give us light from above, LFA, lights from above, that give us the shadow to measure the part. So let's go look at what this looks like live. So this is our P70 with our demo AOI on it, and you'll see we've got these light pillars that are just on these rubber pads, kind of up in the space, so you can again create those shadows. But what they've also done is they've also put them on these pins so you can get them out of the way. If you have a long part you need to measure, put it down, put a long 2D part in. But when you need it for AOI, bring the part up, lock this in place. Now the light pillar is ready to go so we can create our shadows. So let's go into the software. So from here, let's open up some files. And I've got my wooden part here. Now you'll see about this wooden part, I've got 4 blind holes. Now in the original P70, just using 2D, we'd never see these holes. We use light coming through it, and since these are blind holes, the light simply wouldn't generate enough light to see it. However, now using AOI, now I can go in and we can turn on these light pillars, in unison to create the proper information to collect the data. And that'll look like this. There's my CAD program. I hit go in 3, 2, 1, bang. Captures the 2D information, finds where the part is at on the table, then it turns on its AOI to find the information to see what it looks like, and from there we can see the part is actually green. Zoom in for you here real quick. And there's that green part, and we're able to measure it. Again, we're using that surf scan information, project back to the part, tell you pass or fail information. If I go to my report, you'll see that I actually highlighted X, Y locations to those holes and the diameters as well, right? So we got the X locations, the diameter, and some Y locations as well to see where those guys are at. How that works is in your new inspection reports window, if you have the AOI attached, you'll see this new guy called AOIs. If I click on this, I can now modify what features are going to be utilized using the AOI. And again, from earlier when we talked about the etching, it's the yellow features, right? So if I want to go edit this hole here, I right click on it. This is the information we see for how the AOI works. You can see this flashing blue purple is where it thinks the line is. And as you can kind of mess with your gain or how you're going to modify and look at this part, we take pictures live to set this up at the machine and verify that this is going to be the right information. So one caveat to AOI is AOI does not work with offline planar. We need to have a part, we need to have it at the machine, and we need to take a photo to see what the information looks like while we have the lights here. So going back to Larry, that's why we have the information. We're going to project the part onto the table, because as we start using AOI, if I'm going to program the part this way, I need the operators to put the part down on the table in the exact same manner. And that's why Larry was brought up, to verify that we can program it this way, run it this way, and get the most reliable and repeatable data, right? Now let's talk about other uses for AOI. Obviously, blind holes is very common. Another one we can look at, countersinks. We got this large copper part here. Now we got these large, I believe these are 1-inch diameter countersinks on here. Again, normally I'd say take your CAD file, delete the countersinks out. We're only going to measure the through hole, but not anymore. Put the part down on the table, go back, open up my CAD file, my planar file that has this part into it, and hit go. Again, use the 2D, turns on the light pillars so we can see the overall, and you can now see that I've actually got 2 diameters I couldn't normally get. And if I go to my report, I can actually call out, concentricity from the ID to the OD. I can get diameter, I can get distance from one wall to the other. All that information is now viable with our AOI. And last but not least, we also have some gasket material we can use. AOI can be used to get where these red lines run around this part. So you can kind of see it here. Sorry, it's a little bit small for the camera here. We have some red gasket material that can be found as well. We can figure out where the ID metal is, where it meets the contact of the rubber here, and vice versa. And then we even have, embosses such as this, or we have these guys as well. Haven't proven out these ones yet, but as long as we have in the CAD file, we can fit information to it and we can collect a shadow. So that is AOI. If you guys have any interest or if this intrigues you at all, please reach out to PQI. Let us do a demo for you. This is a new add-on feature. We haven't fully proven out its capabilities yet, but it's always better if we can just get a presentation with you to kind of show off what the software can do, verify we can get what you need, and we can kind of go from there. So that is AOI, our area of interest. And last but not least, we have the OptiScan 3D automation. So this is for those of you that have, again, the full 3D OptiScan table. And in the new 2022 software, they did a lot of improvements to try and make life easier for you 3D users. First thing they did is they created a script inside Control-X, kind of a script that works with Control-X, to do a multi-scan set merge. Basically, you scan 3 different parts on the table, 3 different views, and as long as all those 3 CAD files or point clouds are in the same folder, you run the script, and it'll individually grab each one, fit it to CAD, grab each file, fit it to CAD, and when you're done, then you fit all three of those individually to each other, got the full CAD file done. All right. The 3D scanning texture option is now available. Only those of you that do a lot of 3D scanning really understand the texture option, but it just allows you to get a more realistic CAD file if that's what you're looking for, in a sense of finding etching, finding any markers that somebody put on the part. Just kind of gives you more information to view that CAD file. And now, again, going back to the automation of 3D scanning, we now added an option called a done file. Most systems out there, whether it's a robot or it's an automation factor, we look for multiple point clouds, multiple data sets. And we have to tell the system one way or another that we're done, and you can now grab the information. And that is why we created this done file option, is to interface with this robots, these automation systems, to say, hey, there's 5 point clouds in there. I'm done scanning. Here's a done file. You can now do your process and see what happens from there. And last but not least, they did improve the 3D scan data save speed over networks. Basically, they tried to narrow down the size of the point clouds, so it's a smaller file to send over networks if viable. We still try and recommend, if you can, keep it local as much as possible. It'll always program and kind of compute faster when you have it locally, but we understand it's not always viable as you have a big machine shop and you have to have all the data kind of interface from machine to machine. So that was the Planar 2022 overview. I thank you so much for joining. I hope you guys learned a lot about the software. Hope you're excited about using the new version. If you don't already have it, please reach out to me at john.timmerman@pqi.net or david.lodge@pqi.net. Somebody can get a hold of you and kind of send you your new software if you need it. So again, thank you for joining me for the Planar 2022 review, and I look forward to hearing from you. Take care.